Good afternoon, everyone. I'd now like to call today's meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to order. We would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash, unceded First Nation, and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis peoples and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters. The purpose of this meeting is to review applications for minor variance, as well as consent to sever applications as they apply to lands within the municipality of Meaford. Let me start by first introducing the members of this committee. On my far right is Mr. David Cramp, Mr. Ed Ormsby. On my far left, Mr. Peter Toval, and myself, Terry Williams. I am the chair. I'd also like to introduce the members of the municipal planning staff in attendance here today. Denise McCarl, Manager of Planning Services. Michael Kelly, Planner. Helena Fascinato, Planner, and Haley Amadi, Planning Technician and Secretary Treasurer for this committee. We are legally required to make decisions that conform to the Provincial Planning Act, as well as the existing county and local official plans. Based on those documents, as well as any additional relevant correspondence, the municipal planning staff have prepared detailed reports and provide this committee with their recommendations. The committee is encouraging everyone to share their thoughts about proposed applications. For those joining us remotely via Zoom, as well as those that are here in person today, you will have the opportunity to speak should you wish to do so. I will call upon you at the appropriate time. It is also appropriate to ask questions that you may have as it relates to these applications, because your constructive criticisms and comments to this committee will help us to make informed decisions. The applicant or their representatives will also have the opportunity to respond to any of the questions that are raised either by the committee or by the public. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the decisions of today's applications may do so by calling 519-538-1060, extension 1120, or through an email request to planning@meaford.ca. Before we begin today's public meeting, I must ask if any of the members of this committee have any direct personal or pecuniary interests or anything of a general nature thereof as it relates to today's files. Seeing none. Have the members of the committee had an opportunity to review the minutes of our last meeting?
Yes.
Are there any necessary changes? May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting? David and Peter, all in favor? That motion is carried. We will now proceed with the public section. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider an application for consent under Section 45 of the Planning Act as it relates to Part Lot 27, Concession 7 in Meaford, formerly part of St. Vincent. The requirement to hold this meeting is that there must have been at least 14 days notice as prescribed by the Planning Act. Haley, can you please confirm to me the date of the notice was published and calculate that we've had at least 14 days notice?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the notice was provided on August 7th, 2025, giving more than the required 14 days notice.
Thank you. Has each member of the committee visited the subject land or had an opportunity to review the file?
Yes.
Then I would ask the planner on this file, Michael, if you'd please summarize the application and provide us with any comments or comments that have been received?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant is requesting consent to sever one residential lot from an existing 7.7 hectare parcel. The lot will be approximately 3.21 hectares in size and have approximately 130 meters of frontage on 7th line. The lands would be serviced by a new private well and septic system and would be accessed again by 7th line, an open and maintained municipal road. In addition, the applicant also proposes to establish an easement across the severed parcel to recognize the hydro lane that services the existing house on the lot. The lands are designated rural and environmental protection in the Meaford official plan. So comments were received from Grey County Planning, Ecology, and Social Services staff, noting no concerns with the application. After report finalization, additional comments were received from the historic Saugeen Métis, who stated they had no objection to the application. And additional comments were received from Grey Sauble Conservation Authority, who determined that there was sufficient room outside the regulated area to establish a new building envelope for a dwelling, well, and septic system. GSCA stated the consent was acceptable provided that the entrance for the new lot be required to demonstrate safe access and that the culvert is appropriately sized to handle storm events. This would be required as part of the standard municipal evaluation for whether or not an entrance permit can be issued, and as such is already captured under the requirements recommended in recommended condition number 3 in the planning report. No other comments have been received as of this time, and after review of the proposal based on applicable planning policies and documents, staff are satisfied that the application is consistent with the policies of the PPS and upholds the intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. As such, staff are recommending approval, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Thank you, Michael. Members of the committee, are there any questions related to this application? No. Would the applicant or his agent wish to say anything on this file?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ron Davidson. I am the planning consultant that filed the application on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Slaine, and they're here with me today. I have very little to add. Michael went through that, everything basically that you need to know. It conforms with the official plan, both the county level and the local level here. It is consistent with the provincial policy statements. Just to back up a bit, what the Slaines are proposing to do is sever a lot so they can downsize. They want to build their house on the severed parcel and sell the retained parcel that their house is on right now. That's it in a nutshell. I think that's all I need to say. It looks like you've got a lot of things on the agenda, so I'll stop talking now.
Thank you. Is there any members of the public, either online or here, wish to speak on this? Seeing none. Any final comments? Members of the committee? No. Then Haley, can you please read the suggested decision and conditions for approval?
So the recommended decision is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Municipality of Meaford approve consent B14/2025 to sever one lot from an existing parcel and to establish an easement over the proposed lot for the purpose of recognizing an existing hydro easement subject to the following conditions. First, that the applicant meets all the requirements of the municipality, financial or otherwise, for the certificate of consent to be issued. Second, payment of cash in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed lands. Third, confirmation that an entrance permit is available for the road authority and will be provided by the applicant prior to the final approval. And fourth, that the final reference plan be provided to the municipality for review to the satisfaction of the municipality.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the decision as read by the Secretary Treasurer? That was Ann and Peter. Any last comments before we take the vote? All in favor? That motion is passed. Can you please outline next steps, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant can now take down the sign on their property, and I will provide a notice to you by email by Friday. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
We'll just take 30 seconds to sign that. We may. This committee will now consider two applications for consent under Section 45 of the Planning Act for vacant lands on Gray Road 18, Part Lot 17, Concession to East in Meaford. The requirement to hold this meeting is that there must have been at least 14 days notice as prescribed by the Planning Act. Haley, can you please confirm to us the date of notice and calculate that we've had at least 14 days?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the notice was provided on August 7th, 2025, giving more than the required 14 days notice.
Thank you. Michael, I believe you're the planner on this one again. Can you please summarize the application and any comments that have been received?
Sure. So through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant is requesting consent to sever two residential building lots from an existing 46.4 hectare vacant parcel. Lot A will be approximately 4.8 hectares in size and have 164.5 meters of frontage on Gray Road 18. Lot B will be approximately 5.7 hectares in size and have 197 meters of frontage on Gray Road 18. The lands will be serviced by a new private well and septic systems and would have access on Gray Road 18, open and maintained municipal road. The lands are designated rural and environmental protection in the Meaford official plan. So comments from the application were received from Gray County staff, who stated that providing the Conservation Authority is satisfied with the findings of the flood mapping and analysis report, and that all lots can be safely accessed. County Planning Ecology staff's comments are addressed, and that the proposed entrances conform to the previous county transportation comments from 2021. County Planning staff have no concerns with the subject application. These requirements have been integrated into the recommended conditions of consent. Multiple comments were received from the Historic Saugeen Métis. Initial comments stating that they disagreed with the findings of the applicant's EIS and that development could be accommodated with no negative impacts to identify natural heritage features and related ecological functions. Historic Saugeen does not agree with this conclusion, stating that all healthy trees, and in particular mature healthy trees, provide important habitat and ecological functions that cannot be easily replaced. In comments later submitted, Historic Saugeen Métis further recommended that a 30-meter setback be maintained between the waterway and any disturbance. However, ultimately, the Historic Saugeen Métis stated they had no objections to the severances as presented. Finally, comments were received from Gray Selwyn Conservation Authority stating that the previous comments provided for the applications are still valid. These comments were included in the planning report as Appendix 5. And the recommendations of these comments have also been integrated into the proposed conditions of consent. No other comments have been received as of this time. And after review of the proposal, based on applicable planning policies and documents, staff are satisfied that the application can be made consistent with the policies of the PPS and to uphold the intent and purpose of the official plans and zoning bylaws if the recommended conditions are implemented. And as such, staff are recommending approval.
Thank you. Members of the committee, do you have any questions, comments, concerns? No. Is the applicant or their agent here? And if so, do they want to speak on this file online? If you would identify yourself, please.
My name is my name is Don Scott with Questa Planning Consultants. We have been working with Mr. and Mrs. Bechtel on this application for some time. I've reviewed Michael's report. We don't have any additional comments, and we are supporting the recommendations that he provided the committee. I'll answer any questions if the committee has any questions.
Committee members, do you have any questions for this individual? No. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this file? No. Last opportunity, questions, comments. Since this is two consents, they will be handled separately in two votes. So if you could read the suggested decision. Yeah, for B01 first.
So the recommended decision is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Municipality of Meaford approve consent B01 2025 to sever the lot from an existing vacant parcel. Should the committee decide to grant approval of consent B01 2025 parcel A on the site plan, staff recommend the following conditions be included. One, that the applicant meets all the requirements of the municipality, financial or otherwise, for the certificate of consent to be issued. Second, payment of cash in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed lands. Third, that a well test is conducted to demonstrate the severed lot can be adequately supported by on-site water servicing to the satisfaction of the municipality. Fourth, that evidence be provided by a qualified professional that on-site wastewater servicing can be accommodated in areas outside of any areas susceptible to flooding. Fifth, confirmation that an entrance permit is available from the road authority will be provided by the applicant prior to the final approval. Sixth, that written confirmation is received from the County of Grey that any required road widening has been completed to the satisfaction of the County of Grey. Seventh, that the severed lot is appropriately rezoned by application of the property owners to the municipality to accurately represent the actual hazard land limit as established in the letter provided by Grey Sobel Conservation Authority on November 7th, 2024, and to implement the recommendations of the submitted scoped environmental impact study provided by Roots Environmental and dated May 20th, 2025. And lastly, that the final reference plan be provided to the municipality for review to the satisfaction of the municipality.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? No, may I have a motion then to accept the decision? Peter and Ed, all of those in favor? That motion is carried. We'll proceed with P02 first. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Should the committee decide to grant approval of consent B02 2025 parcel B on the site plan, staff recommend the following conditions be included. One, that the applicant meets all the requirements of the municipality, financial or otherwise, for the certificate of consent to be issued. Two, payment of cash in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed lands. Three, that a well test is conducted to demonstrate that the severed lot can be adequately supported by on-site water servicing to the satisfaction of the municipality. Four, that evidence be provided by a qualified professional that on-site wastewater servicing can be accommodated in areas outside of any areas susceptible to flooding. Five, confirmation that an entrance permit is available from the road authority and will be provided by the applicant prior to final approval. Six, that written confirmation is received from the County of Grey that any required road widening has been completed to the satisfaction of the County of Grey. Seven, that the severed lot is appropriately rezoned by application of the property owners to the municipality to accurately represent the actual hazard land limit as established in the letter provided by Grey Sobel Conservation Authority on November 7th, 2024, and to implement the recommendations of the submitted scoped environmental impact study provided by Roots Environmental and dated May 20th, 2025. Eight, that as part of any zoning bylaw amendment for this parcel, a holding symbol be established over the western portion of the parcel to ensure geotechnical information is provided regarding slope stability prior to a dwelling being constructed on the upper lands of parcel B. Nine, that at the time parcel B is developed, a detailed engineer's grading and drainage plan be provided to demonstrate how drainage can be accommodated through the lower portion of parcel B. And lastly, that the final reference plan be provided to the municipality for review to the satisfaction of the municipality.
Thank you. May I have a motion relative to this decision as read by the Secretary Treasurer? Ed and David. Any discussion, comments, concerns? All in favor? That motion is carried. Can you please read the next steps on that file?
Now the applicant can take down the sign on their property, and I will provide a notice to them by Friday, and I will circulate it to them by email. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is application file A0 2025. The Committee of Adjustment will now consider an application for a minor variance under Section 45 of the Planning Act for the property known as 63 Bridge Street in Meaford. Under Section 45 Planning Act, the requirement to hold this meeting there must have been at least 10 days notice as prescribed. Can you please confirm the date of the notice was published and calculate that we've had at least 10 days notice?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The notice was provided on August 7th, 2025, giving more than the required 10 days notice.
Thank you. Pauline, I believe you are the planner on this file. If you could please summarize it and outline any correspondence or that has been received.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So the property owners would like to construct a detached garage containing an additional residential unit or ARU on their property at 63 Bridge Street. So for properties in the residential 3 or R3 zone, the required front yard setback for new accessory buildings is equal to the existing setback from the main wall of the main house to the front property line. So this is to recognize the layout of those established neighborhoods in the more compact urban areas of town, and to ensure that accessory buildings don't significantly alter or impact the street view of the existing neighborhood. So for example, if all the main houses are 10 meters back and you put an accessory building a meter away, it alters that street view. So in this case, the main house on the property is set back 13.9 meters from the front property line. And the owners are requesting a front yard setback of 7.5 meters for the ARU. So looking at the neighborhood, most of the houses are situated closer to the property line than this proposed ARU, with a significant portion of the existing homes along St. Vincent Street located closer than 5 meters from the front property line. And then I also note that the as of right setback for main dwellings within this zone is 7.5 meters. So if you were building a main house on a property there, it could be 7.5 meters from the front property line as of right. So in consideration of this and noting that all other zoning provisions will be met, staff are of the opinion that this variance is minor and recommend approval. And comments were received from county planning and ecology departments who noted no concerns. And then following agenda circulation, we did receive comments from Grace Abel and the historic Saugeen Métis, who also noted no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the committee, are there any questions, concerns, comments? Peter?
It's really for Helena. Helena, is there adequate visibility sight lines between the corner of the proposed garage and the next house over? And it's not shown where exactly the next building is.
Yes, yeah. So it does meet the provisions for the interior side yard setback, and it actually exceeds those provisions.
It's because it's on a corner.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do have for those corner lots site triangle provisions. And so it's 5 by 5 meters and it's well away from that corner line. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any members, any other questions? Helena, I have one. How close is the proposed garage to the property line?
It's 1.499 meters from the interior, from the interior side yard.
Relative to the First Street North, I guess it is, or whatever direction, on St. Vincent, how far does that garage come? Because to me, that house is sitting back a fair ways from the street, and whatever it is, a 23-foot, 24-foot high garage sitting right beside their front porch isn't terribly attractive.
Right, so the height for the ARU, it can be up to 6 meters.
I realize that it's perfectly acceptable in terms of height, but I think it's a question of where does it sit relative to the house next door and their front porch?
So it sits, and it is an irregular lot for sure, this lot at 63 Bridge Street. So it'll sit, and the property owner is here as well, who may be able to provide some more info, but it'll be beside the house to
Yeah,
on
but
the interior side.
does it actually go closer to the road than the porch of the house next door?
No, from looking at aerial photos, no.
Perhaps if the applicant is here, you can speak to that. Yes, please. And if you'd identify yourself.
Yes, my name's Alan Reid. I'm the
Thank
owner of 63 Bridge, along with my wife. So the intention is not to disrupt the streetscape whatsoever. Considerable efforts going into making sure that it reflects the street in terms of quality of product that's on the street. We have spent a fair amount of time with our neighbor Jeff Fletcher, who is in the adjacent house that you reference. He sees no issue with it. The only item he referenced was that he wanted to make sure that his side door could be opened because the lot line is so close. We gave him assurance that that would not be an issue. But the intention is to make sure that it is not farther forward than his front porch or any of the front porches that form that part of the streetscape.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Are there any members of the public and wishing to speak on this? Committee members, any additional comments or questions? No. Haley, can you please provide us with the suggested decision and conditions for approval?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the recommended decision is that Committee of Adjustments approve minor variance A08-2025 for the lands at 63 Bridge Street, providing relief from zoning bylaw 60/2009 to permit a front yard setback of 7.5 meters, where section 4212D requires a minimum front line setback of 13.9 meters, which is the setback of existing front yard of the main dwelling, for an additional residential unit in the residential R3 zone. Subject to the following condition, that the proposed development shall occur substantially in accordance with the site plan and elevations provided with minor variance application A08-2025 and attached to the report.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the decision as read by the Secretary Treasurer? David and Peter. All of those in favor? That motion is carried. Can you please outline the next steps?
So the applicant can now take down the sign on their property, and I will provide a notice to you by email by Friday. Can you repeat that, please? You can now, you're aware that you can take down the sign on the property, and the notice of the decision will be signed, and I will send it to you by email by Friday this week. You're welcome.
There has to be an appeal period, which is why there's a slight delay, if you will, in final approval. The committee will now consider an application for minor variance, file A09-2025 under section 45 of the Planning Act, known as 203776 Highway 26. The requirement to hold this meeting is that there must have been at least 10 days notice as prescribed in the Planning Act. Can you please confirm to us the date the notice was published, and calculate that we've had at least 10 days notice?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the notice was provided on August 7th, 2025, giving more than the required 10 days notice.
Thank you. Elaine, I believe you are the planner on this file again as well.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. So the property owner would like to build a sugar shack with sap tanks on the property at 203776 Highway 26 for maple syrup processing, which is a permitted use in the rural area. The property is accessed by an established right-of-way over a neighboring property, which provides legal access to the lands. Staff would note that the subject property has an approved entrance permit issued through MTO and maintains a civic address. So at the time of building permit submission review, it was noted that the proposal did not comply with a portion of section 4.8 of the zoning bylaw. So section 4.8 notes that prior to building, a property shall abut on and obtain legal access from a street. So although the property obtains legal access, it does not have technical frontage on a street. So the property owner is requesting relief from this provision. Our official plan policies support driveway access by right-of-ways for existing landlocked parcels, such as this one, with the intent being to not sterilize existing lots that are within zones that permit these type of uses, such as the rural zone. And the way that the zoning bylaw is worded does require planning approval prior to building on landlocked parcels. And in this case, the property is viable for building. And both the County Planning and Ecology and Grace Sable Conservation Authority have no concerns with the proposal. And in consideration of this, staff do recommend approval of this minor variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for the planning staff relative to this file? Yes, Mr. Rumsby.
Hi, Helena. Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. The fact that it's going to be, is it going to be retail or commercial? Like, are you going to be able to drive in there and buy certain, does that make a difference in terms of access through this road allowance?
So it'll be for the processing, so tapping the trees and collecting the sap, but it won't be for any commercial retail sales on the property.
So it doesn't affect the access, the right of way in any way in terms of what's happening back in the landlocked property doesn't affect the access to the highway.
No, and it'll be similar to any other agricultural use where there may be some, trucks
Right.
going in and out or tractors, that kind of thing. But any commercial use would need to go through site plan approval as well and all of that. But no, it won't affect it.
Any other questions from the committee members? Is the applicant here? And if so, would you like to speak on this, or you're quite comfortable with letting the committee make the decision from here? Thank you. Any public? No. Committee members, last chance. Then Haley, can you please provide a suggested decision and conditions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the recommended decision is that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance A09-2025 for the lands at 203776 Highway 26, providing relief from Section 48A of Zoning Bylaw 60/2009 to allow for the construction of buildings and or structures on a property that does obtain legal access from a street by way of right-of-the-way easement over the lands at 203816 Highway 26, but doesn't front on a street.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the decision as suggested? Peter and Ed, all those in favor? Motion carried.
All right, so now you're aware that you can take down the sign on your property, and I will provide a notice to you within a couple of days by email. Thank you.
And now for what the majority of people here have been waiting for, the committee will now consider an application for a minor variance for under Section 45 of the Planning Act for lots 1 to 18, 23 to 26, and 94 to 97, Plan 16M89 in Meaford. The requirement to hold this meeting is that there must have been at least 10 days notice. Since this was deferred from a previous meeting, we know that indeed we have had more than 10 days notice. Normally, what would happen when we got to a file like this is we would simply address any information that has come since the file was originally discussed in our last meeting. I think given the interest and the application or the letters that have been written, I think it's appropriate that I ask Michael to review the entire file and detail the correspondence that has been received at this time. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair. So this application was deferred at the July 23rd meeting. Original comments were received from the historic Sahi Métis and the town of the Blue Mountains, Grey County Planning and Ecology staff, and Grey Summit Conservation Authority. All were received stating they had no concerns. After the deferral, as was mentioned, we received quite a few letters from members of the public, including from Imagine Meaford, Roy Meredith, Christine Meredith, Justin Crouch, Chris Webb, Nicole Mogilnicki, sorry, Nicole, and Brian Martin, all voicing concern with the application. Concerns that are generally related to loss of green space, traffic safety, street parking, increased density, and snow removal and storage. I will note that all of these letters have been provided to committee members prior to this meeting. So just to orient ourselves, the request is that the application is that the applicant be granted relief from the zoning bylaw, parking requirements of section 5.5B to permit a building with 3 or more dwelling units to allow parking in the front yard. The original evaluation was done in the original planning report. As part of this return to the committee, staff wrote an addendum report, which was added to the original report. And I think at this time, we'll just go through a bit of that addendum now. So staff want to clarify the scope of the applicant's request. So once, as I said, the application is requesting relief from the zoning bylaw to permit a building with 3 or more dwelling units to have parking facilities in the front yard. The purpose of this request would be to allow single detached or semi-detached homes to have driveways in front of the home rather than along the side into the backyard. And this request is the only thing under review. Staff want to clarify the use of the term front yard. Though in common language, a front yard generally refers to a landscaped area in front of a building. From a zoning perspective, it only refers to the area of a parcel between the street and the front wall of the main building. So requesting parking to be allowed in the front yard does not mean a property owner is permitted to park their cars on grass or anything like that. It simply means that a driveway can be located between the front of the home and the road. During the initial meeting, staff addressed concerns about, addressed questions about section 4.2 of the zoning bylaw, which permits up to 2 additional residential units per property. However, in reviewing the meeting, staff later noted it could have been clear that this provision stems from provincial requirements. Changes to the Planning Act through Ontario Regulation 29919 mandate that municipalities allow up to 2 ARUs as of right on urban residential lands. The municipality then amended its zoning bylaw to reflect these requirements and has no authority to override them. I also want to clarify that during the last meeting, I used the phrase municipally initiated to describe this amendment. In hindsight, that phrase is a bit jargony. Municipally initiated simply refers to an amendment that is not brought forward by an application by a private citizen. It does not necessarily mean that it's the municipality's idea to do it. Oftentimes it can be because we're just implementing things that have already been implemented by the province. So concerns were raised during the meeting regarding street parking. Meaford's parking bylaw, which is available on the municipal website, regulates parking within the municipality. Anyone hoping to park on a public street would be required to follow the rules of this bylaw. Some of these rules include no street parking during winter months, no blocking of driveways, no blocking of the path of travel on the roadway or sidewalks, amongst others. Anyone in contravention of this bylaw is subject to the specific penalties, which include ticketing, being towed as applicable. It should be further noted that this bylaw will be in effect at the time the road is assumed by the municipality. If at the time the streets within the subdivision are assumed by the municipality and the parking situation is deemed to be an issue, the municipality can update its parking bylaw to greater restrict parking in this area. So after reviewing the meeting, staff also believe it would be helpful to provide members of the public with some additional context as to how the Committee of Adjustment is required to make decisions on minor variance applications. So the Planning Act is the provincial legislation which allows municipalities to make decisions on how land is used within their boundaries. Municipalities regulate the use of land through various policy documents, including the official plan, which contains high-level policies on how the municipality as a whole is intended to develop over an extended period of time, and the municipal zoning bylaw, which contains more specific requirements on a property-by-property basis. It is important to note that any provincial legislation supersedes these 2 documents. If a property owner wishes to be granted an exemption from one of the requirements of the zoning bylaw, they can apply for a minor variance to be allowed to do so. The Planning Act permits Municipal Committee of Adjustment to grant a minor variance as long as it meets the following 4 tests. 1, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? 2, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? 3, is the variance desirable for the appropriate development of lands? And 4, is the variance minor? The role of staff is to interpret municipal policies passed by council, as well as the applicable legislation by the province of Ontario, and using the 4 tests, provide the committee with a recommendation based on interpretation of this policy. It is the role of the committee members to decide whether they agree or disagree with staff's interpretation of the 4 tests and either approve and deny the application as applicable. It is important to note that the decisions of the committee are only able to be made based on interpretations of the 4 tests and only for the application in question and only within the scope of what the application is requesting. Though staff is sympathetic that members of the public may have concerns regarding density or street parking, these concerns are beyond the scope of the submitted application. As outlined in the original report, staff are of the opinion that this application meets the 4 tests of minor variance, and as such, staff recommend the Committee of Adjustment approve the application for minor variance. That's it.
Thank you. Members of the committee, do you have any questions?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I apologize. I wasn't at the last meeting, so a lot of this is the information that I've taken out of the file and tried to absorb everything that you've been telling us, Michael. A couple of things that came to my mind was, one, I took a little tour around some other developments, and I see where they have public parking places in every section of their development. Has that ever been looked at, or is it legislative, or is that just something that's part of good planning? That was my first question. And secondly, how does this impact? These are sixplexes, I guess, are they? Is that what they call these? These particular buildings, or threeplexes?
They're single
They're-
dwellings with three.
Technically, they are.
Technically, they're
You could say that they are
Single.
semi-detached or single detached dwellings with additional residential units.
right.
So just to make it, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
So is each one of these people still going to be allowed to park two vehicles?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. That answers my question.
Committee members, any other? Peter?
Yes, thank you, through Mr. Chair. We received today additional information from planning department on three drawings. I wonder, is that possible they can be put up so everyone can see what they are? And can someone take us through what they are about?
So I will leave that up to the applicant who is here today. I can direct as you want, but
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we were
Can you
requested.
please identify
Sorry.
yourself, although
Yes.
most people know.
Rob Armstrong, I'm a planner representing Norterra, who is the proponent of these properties, who's looking to develop it. At the request of Michael, we have provided some drawings just to give some context of what's being requested. This drawing was the original drawing, I believe, that was submitted with the application, which shows a semi-detached unit. You're seeing the unit on the left with the 4 parking spots out front. In accordance with the bylaw, you required 2 parking spaces for the main dwelling unit and then 1 each for the ADU, accessory dwelling unit. So those are the 4 parking spots. So that's what you are seeing on that drawing. Within a semi-detached. As Michael noted, the provisions of the bylaw, when you have a dwelling unit, so one of those semi-detached, which has 3 units in it, you're not allowed to have parking in the front yard by virtue of the bylaw. Those 3 units, as Michael mentioned, are legislated that you must allow them within a single detached, semi-detached type unit, which is being considered on that. So they're required to be allowed. So our position is we're allowed to have 3 units, but it's unreasonable for us to require us to have parking in the side yard or in the rear yard for these type of units. So that's what you're seeing here. The next drawing was just showing context of how it would look with the two semi-detached. So you can see you have the 4 parking spots in front of each of the units. And to take advantage of provided additional green space, you're allowed to connect the driveways on a semi-detached. So there's 0 lot line allowed when you connect them, which will keep the 2 meters on the opposite side. So 2 to 2, you'll have 4 meters of green space in between, or landscape space in between the parking areas. Again, this is just showing the context when you have 4 separate units. And the last drawing that was provided, the provincial legislation allows you to have 2 ADUs in a dwelling for 3 units, or it allows you to have 1 ADU in the dwelling and 1 as accessory. You heard an application earlier today where they were doing an ADU in an accessory building. So here's a synopsis where you have 2 units in the main building and you have an accessory in the back. We would not be in front of the committee today they would have a right of approval to do that because you only have 2 units in the main building, which is the provision of the bylaw that we're running against, and therefore we can't do it. So we could do these and have 3 units on the property in accordance with the current bylaw. And I think that was the intent of showing the difference of what we could do as a right today versus why we're here on the other scenario. I hope that explains the purpose. I can answer that one question that didn't get answered by the member, Mr. Ormsby. Some developments, yes, they do have common parking areas. Those are typically in condominiums or other forms of development where that parking area can be managed by a condominium corporation. This is a standard freehold development, so the individual will own an individual lot. The roads are all public. There's no common ownership and ability to have common maintenance of those areas. So it's not, you cannot do that under a conventional plan of subdivision.
Are there any additional questions specifically for the planning staff?
Yes, planning staff. If you expand that drawing to the next units across, how many units we're going to get, parking lot space we're going to get? Because we're talking how many different lots this is going to be applied to.
Sorry, how many lots is the minor
Well, yeah,
variance applied to?
If you expand this drawing, to
Yeah.
the real number of units can be built. How
Yeah.
many parking spaces will there be in the streetscape?
There is approximately 20 units, I believe. 30, approximately 30 units. Yeah. That this variance would apply to.
So how many parking stalls will there be?
120. In theory, there would be permitted to be up to 120. But just to make it clear, it is already permitted. All of those parking spaces are already
Well, I
permitted.
understand that. I understand that.
Okay.
My other point is the fact I take a bit of an issue with your report in your 4 tests.
Okay.
Number 3, is the variance desirable for the appropriate development of the lands? I think this is overdoing it. This is not what the original intent was, to have single family dwellings in a low rise development. This is now going to look like a big parking lot. My other point is in number 4, is the variance minor? This is a major variance, not a minor one, in my opinion.
It's okay, you don't.
I can.
Tangents that,
Okay.
I mean, that follows with a similar question I had and I discussed previously with you. If the developer had come initially with a variance request to basically reduce the front yard from, because they wanted to go to singles from 11 to 8, reduce the side yard setbacks and do the additional, move the parking space, would the planning staff still have considered this a minor variance?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question in a few parts if that's all right. So, sorry. So to bounce off a little bit of what Peter already said. So the original variance was to allow these lots to be changed to allow single detached dwellings. When the subdivision was designed, it was designed to have semi-detached dwellings. So that was what was in place before, and then that was varied to also allow single detached later. Whether or not staff would still consider this minor. So I will start by saying every planning application is supposed to be taken on its own merit. But as part of for a hypothetical sake, I would say, in my opinion, yes, I would still consider this minor because the only thing actually being requested here is that parking is allowed in the front yard. And I would say in line with most of with every other part of this development, parking is allowed in the front yard. And as such, that request is not minor, or is minor, sorry.
I have a couple of additional questions. Has the developer come back and asked or had discussions relative to any changes in the remaining phases 3 to 5, other than what was approved in the recent zoning bylaw 2025-30 in May? like, I'm trying to understand whether there's going to be future changes. And I'm asking the planning staff first.
Mr. Chair, I'll jump in. So not to my knowledge, however, there is a number of additional lands to be developed. And so it isn't unusual for developers over time to request changes given the market changes that happen, especially in subdivisions that build out more slowly. So if something built out over a course of a summer, like you might see in a big city, then they don't need to do that. But what happens when it takes several years to build out a subdivision, often they realize that certain unit types are more desirable to the market at that time and they may make changes. So it's not unusual. So I don't want to say they never will ask for anything else. And I don't think it would be reasonable to expect that they wouldn't. But at this stage, they had noticed that certain units were selling better than other things and they wanted to be more adaptable to those changes, which is why that zoning amendment happened in the springtime.
I have one additional question. There, concern has been expressed with respect to traffic. And one of the TIS studies talked about a left turn lane and lights going in at Equity Drive. And it would be triggered by when, for instance, Meaford Haven started building. Do you have any sense of when that is going to happen?
So through you again, Mr. Chair. So I was dealing with some of these other files at that higher level. So I was dealing with Meaford Haven for several years. At this stage, the traffic impact study was updated last year, and so they can go a little bit longer before those improvements are needed. So originally it was going to be, and I think, and Mr. Armstrong will know better than me automatically, but I believe it was 101 units were permitted in the first phase between both developments before they needed to do traffic improvements or improvements. And now I believe it's 226 between the two developments. So if you add in phase one of Loon Call and you take the first phase of Bay Bounds, they're well within that number. They're below that. So it'll be in the following phases when they'll have to make those improvements.
I struggled with the revised TIS. It showed that when you went from single dwelling facilities to semi-detached, the traffic went down. And so in a sense, I'm looking at this that says we're going to go from semi-detached to single, which is approved in the previous variance, but now we're adding we're adding 2 additional units to each of those buildings. So, you know, to me, I think we need to take a serious look at when this traffic study gets done, especially with the development of Bay Bounds. I mean, they're going crazy getting that property up and going now. Just a comment from committee, because I know traffic and is a serious concern. And we all know that the traffic along 26 is getting more and more every day. Is there any additional questions for the planning staff specifically?
Just to comment to what you said, this is 60 new units. We talked about 30 that were there initially, now with 2 additional units or 30 that were proposed. 2 additional new units in each one of them is 60.
I think it's only specifically 24.
Like 24. So
I know it's still
48
substantial.
units.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to thank all the people who responded, the correspondence from the neighbors received. I think they're very good points and well worth taking. And to me, that also, and it goes to this point about number 3, this variance is not desirable for the appropriate development of the lands.
Are there any other questions? I have some for Mr. Armstrong, if I may.
I just want to clarify, I also have Zach Wilczek from Norterra, who is the developer of these units. So if I can't answer them and they're more on the development side, I'll pass it over to them. I also want to clarify, so Norterra, who is the one looking at to develop these, they own some of these lots and they also have offers to purchase the rest of the lots from M1 Development Link, Loon Call. Loon Call is not the one that's proposing to do this development. They are a townhouse developer, as per you can see across the road. That's what they develop. And they're not the ones doing it. So it's Norterra that is looking to develop these units into the semi-detached.
I asked the question to planning staff. Is Norterra looking at any changes for phases 3 through 5?
Norterra does not have any interest in any of the future lots that I'm aware of. Loon Call is proceeding. They've submitted applications to proceed with the next 24 units. Those 24 units are up by the stormwater management pond. They're townhouses. They are not proposing to develop those units in that matter. Basically, development will be stalled after that point until they deal with the turning lane requirements and also water main upgrades aligned with the Bay Bounds development.
The houses that we're dealing with today, will they all not be built and until somebody basically buys them? So are they all guaranteed to have 380 units?
I think that's a question for Zach. I'll pass it over to him.
Hello,
Well,
is that on? There you go.
yes, it is.
My name is Zach Walshchuk. I represent Norterra Development Group. And yeah, so just to specify, we're just applying for the lots in the application. LCDG is listed on there because we have an interest in the property for future purchase. But yeah, the intent, to answer your question, is to continue to sell these as market housing. We wanted to open up the option to provide alternative forms of housing on the lots. Given the nature of the conflict with the parking, we felt we made the application on all of the lots, but the intention is not to build the entire subdivision with triplexes on individual lots. Back when we made the application to change them into singles, that was also the intent there. So ultimately, we're opening up the option on the lots to appeal to different market demands.
Please correct me if I got this wrong. Do I understand that not all of these units that you're asking for a variance on will be the triplex? Or is it simply somebody comes in and says, I want a house on lot 1, but I don't want it built as a triplex. I want it built as a single unit. Is that going to happen?
Correct. It's going to continue to happen. And that's actually the preference. We have a handful of different models. The majority of them are detached or semi-detached. And if that's what they purchase, then that's what we build.
Okay, so the discussions we've had essentially are potentially maximum as opposed to.
Correct.
Thank you. I have if I can bring back Mr. Armstrong, please. These originally, when this subdivision was approved, the driveways were all the width outlined here, which I think is 10 feet or whatever it is. I got a little note here. The driveway widths have not changed.
I don't believe the driveway widths were identified that I'm aware of. The bylaw requirement is 1 meter side yard on each side, or if you're doing a shared driveway, you can go 0. That's one of the things that has happened. The buildings have been pushed back further from the road, so they're set back further to allow that additional parking than the minimum bylaw required.
But in changing from a semi-detached to a detached, you would not change the driveway dimensions for those buildings.
I don't believe, I'm not sure I understand. The driveway dimensions are controlled by the zoning bylaw.
I understand
Yeah,
there are minimums
so you-
and maximums. All I'm trying to say is in my mind, the change from the original submission on the subdivision, which was approved.
Yeah.
Showed driveways essentially there.
Mhm.
And when you apply to go to single detached, it was normally would have had 11 meters of front yard. And we approved 8, which is the same as the semi-detached. So what I'm saying is that change has not changed anything relative to the driveway width other than. Yeah.
Yes, correct, yes.
So if I understand it correctly, based on the lot size, the driveways will take up approximately 60% of the front yard.
With
5.5 meters out of an 8-meter.
correct,
frontage.
yes. So 2.5 meters is excess space you don't require for parking. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the
Mr.
committee?
Chairman, through you to Rob or whoever, you indicated that the houses have moved deeper into the lot. Give me the measurement now from the curb to the garage door.
Maybe Michael has it.
If you can blow up that. I had to get out a magnifying glass too.
Yeah.
So the normal zoning bylaw requirement is 7.5 meters. And they're proposing 16.7 meters or 54 feet versus 25 feet. So almost. Yeah, there's room that we can bring them closer to the road, but it was to bring them back further.
I don't want it closer to the road.
No. Yeah, so we've doubled doubled the setback that's.
We have
the
a development in town right now where you put a full-size truck in the laneway, it's sticking out on the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, the parking spots that you see on the drawing are the minimum requirements. You can see that there's additional area between the garage and the front property line, not the road, but the front property line to accommodate much deeper vehicles in this instance.
Questions from the committee? No. I'd like to invite the public to come up to the podium and address your concerns. In the interests of time, because we have all read the letters that have been submitted, I would suggest, and we're all concerned about traffic and parking, that we try not to repeat what has been said by previous people, if that is possible. So feel free if anyone would like to take to the podium. And identify yourself. I think it needs to be turned on, I think.
My name is Brian Martin. I live at 221 Equality Drive, the Loon subdivision. We're talking about parking, and this is what we're here for. Me growing up in the GTA, and with this bill that Ford passed, this Bill 23 that allows builders to build multiple dwellings, I get that. When Ford was announcing this announcement, he was basically saying the greater Toronto area or big metropolitan cities. Not once did I say, oh, horn pain, now they can go ahead and develop homes and have multiple dwelling units. Now, I'm all for safety. And in Toronto, most of the people I talk to that live in basement apartments, rooming houses, upper level apartments, they don't drive, they don't have wheels. So when they leave their front door, there's a sidewalk, up the street from a sidewalk, there's a bus. If there's not a bus, there's a streetcar. You walk down 2 blocks, there's a subway. So I'm all for this, and I'm in the town, they should be all for it too, these multiple dwellings. But you have to take in consideration the infrastructure. Now, do you guys have public transit here in Meaford? Do you? I'm asking a question. No?
No.
Okay. Michael, in your plans, do you have any specific plans for putting a sidewalk from let's say the Ultramar where the sidewalk ends to our subdivision where you're supposedly going to be putting up a set of lights? Is there a sidewalk that you've in the works?
Denise?
If we could take down any specific questions and not do a bit of a back and forth, because that will take a really long time.
Okay, sorry.
So, but I would be happy to answer questions at the end, if that's possible. We could just amalgamate them all. The answer to that is there is a long-term plan for sidewalks. It's not part of planning's work plan. It's an infrastructure project, so I can't comment on the timing of something like that, but it would be in the future. It's not in the 5-year capital plan.
Okay, sorry. Are you allowed to walk on Highway 26? Am I allowed to ride a bike on Highway 26? Like, the reason why I'm bringing this up, if you're gonna have rental units, say you got a family that doesn't have a vehicle, how they getting into town? Say there's a mother with 2 kids, one's in a stroller. How is she gonna get from Loon subdivision into town? Can you answer that? No?
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, that's my
And I
concern,
understand-
safety,
I
safety.
understand your questions are related
Yeah.
around transportation. The existing bylaw,
Yes,
which we are only empowered to answer to,
right,
allows the threeplex.
right.
And it says in those instances,
Mhm.
there must be 4 parking
Okay,
spaces.
that's what we're arguing
2
today.
2 for the principal resident and 1
Okay.
for each of the additional units.
Sure,
And so what you're suggesting is that there may be multiple cars for the same family. And I understand that that is a very valid concern,
Mhm.
but I can't
Oh, I understand that.
answer that question, and neither can the committee.
Okay, but the city, they have to look into stuff like that. Like, you don't want to be liable down the road. You have to do your due diligence. That's all I'm saying. You can't snuff it off and say, we'll worry about it down. Because there's gonna be renters in there that aren't gonna own vehicles. I guarantee that. Guarantee, and you're talking about parking. To me, I don't think parking's an issue. It's about safety. Like, how are these people getting into town? And that's all you want me to, that's all I'll say. If it's not imperative for this meeting today, then I'll just sit down. I just wanted to voice my opinion, because it's gonna happen. You know, and if someone gets hit on the Highway 26, the town of Meaford is gonna be liable. Won't be 100%, won't be 75, won't be 50, but I guarantee it'll be 25% at fault.
I certainly understand your concerns, and I would encourage you to address those concerns directly with council,
Mhm.
because they look at long-term capital budgets as it relates to sidewalks and
Mhm.
so forth. But we're here to.
So I know, I'm just all about safety. That's the only reason why I came here, to put this out there about the safety, you know. I'm worried about the safety, the people walking on
I
26.
appreciate your concern. Thank you. Sir, anyone else that wishes to speak? Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Sullivan, and although I live in Meaford, I don't live in this subdivision. Additional dwelling units gives the impression that they are added to an existing property, and so the intentions seem to be a good idea and long overdue. However, what we see here is an abuse of that idea. These should not be considered as ADUs, as they are purpose-built 3-unit multiplexes and should face the same scrutiny as other multiplexes with 3 or more units, and ensure that there is parking in the rear. A 6-unit semi-detached building on a 14-meter lot will have 12 meters of asphalt in front of it. It'll be difficult to find a place to plant a tree in the boulevard in front of these multiplexes because it's all asphalt. People moved into this subdivision expecting more to look at than boulevards full of asphalt. Meaford should not let these people down. The official plan calls for appropriate parking. In this case, it should be appropriate for what they are, parking in the rear for multiplexes of 3 or more units. The online ads for this builder show single driveways, only room for 1 car in front of a single garage on a single driveway, and yet they're building something completely different. Some would call this bait and switch. The plan they provided for this meeting was so blurry, I had to ask for a clear PDF copy. When provided, I found the measurements used did not match the lots. A semi-detached building is shown on the plan with a much wider frontage than a semi-detached lot. It's shown on there as being 8 meters. Half of the 14.3 meter lot is 7.15. So if you use the dimensions shown, the building would not meet the side yard requirements. Okay, this is just an example, but it's deceiving. This has little to do with driveways, but it might say something about the differences in what you are shown and what will be built. By the way, the driveways are as wide or wider than the buildings that they're in front of. A builder, I won't mention that. Boulevards full of asphalt and cars at the entrance of the subdivision will be seen from Highway 26 and the western entrance to Meaford. Is this the look Meaford wants? Asphalted boulevards full of cars will not improve any resale value of the properties that have already been purchased. The plan of the subdivision was approved and registered. This is more than a minor variance. It changes the streetscape of the main entrance to this subdivision. Because it is approved, another traffic study is not needed. The park requirements do not change, and it is still a single entrance subdivision, despite having an additional 60 units and a lot more cars backing out of driveways. Meaford does not have public transportation, so cars are needed. Most families have 2 working members and 2 cars to get to work. That is 6 cars in that 3-unit multiplex. And where is the parking for guests? Driveways that are 6 meters wide will not leave any room on that side of the street for parking on the road. And there's already very limited parking on the other side. Existing homes on the other side of the road will pay the price for this and lose their extra road parking. That section 5.5B of the zoning bylaw 60-209 is valid. That requirement for rear parking of multiplexes of 3 or more units is protection. To require additional scrutiny to ensure that they have, as the official plan says, appropriate parking, not parking that changes the whole streetscape of a main road into a subdivision. Ideas as significant as this should be a part of the planning process, not an afterthought where people have already invested their future. As I've mentioned, the parking for this application should be considered for what it is, and that is 30 3-unit multiplexes requiring rear parking. Thank you for the opportunity to present this.
Yes, sir. Please.
My name is Roy Meredith from 219 Equality Drive. I just wonder if Michael could put up the other drawing that showed the parking on the other side. I know that it was mentioned that there were 16 of these units. The drawing I saw shows 26. I just want to get clarification of how many there is potentially that could be triplexes. I believe it's 26 in total. I wonder if I could just get clarification on that.
It's my understanding that at the moment, if I'm doing the math here, slots 1 to 18, 23 to 26, and 94 to 97. So that's 18, 21, 24.
24.
Yeah.
Okay. So right there, that shows 2 on that picture there. So there's going to be 24 of them. That's going to have all those cars. So I know you guys were talking about streetscape and we're very concerned about it. And I just wanted to like show you what it's going to look like with all that parking that's going to be allowed. I've got a statement here. I'm going to cut it short. I know a lot of questions have been asked, but there's a few things that I wanted to talk about that I talked to a lot of people and they've been talking a lot about Bill 23 and how the feeling was that Bill 23 is what's pushing this to happen. And that Bill 23 is to allow and support gentle intensification. This is not gentle. This is sudden intensification, not gentle. And that Bill 23, I know really it doesn't give developers a free pass. It doesn't shift support of power to the developers. You know, they still have the authority and the duty to decide where and how intensification fits. You're not required to make something fit that clearly doesn't. You're not looking to allow a square peg in a round hole. You can and you should insist on the developments to respect local planning principles. And I just want to talk lastly about Section 45 of the Planning Act. I know you guys did talk about it, but it's true. This is not truly a minor thing. It really is not. It doesn't maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw. It doesn't conform to the official plan, and it's not appropriate for the land. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Armstrong, out of all of the dwellings that have been built, how many of them have single driveways? So rather than something like this where it's basically two cars can be parked side by side.
I couldn't answer that. I'm not too sure. Again, that comes down to the building permit process on how that goes in. So I'm not too sure how many. I know the townhouses would be the single because they're singles into the garages, but I'm not sure of the singles, the larger singles that were sold off to another developer.
Yeah.
But
of the buildings that Norterra has built.
I can speak to that. On our semi-detached houses, we make the driveway widths 3 meters wide to match the garage. If we were to have a 2-car garage, we'd make them 6 meters wide to match the garage. But yeah, so for the majority of the semis, the 3 meter wide driveway. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Anyone wishing to speak? We're going to give the online people a chance first, if I may. Brian Armstrong, if you are online and wish to speak, could you unmute and go ahead, please?
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I'm Bryn Armstrong, so I'm also an owner of one of the townhouses on Equality Drive. And yeah, I'm just thinking about, again, like the parking and the safety as mentioned, and then mainly like looking across the street and the view of just the parking and minimal green space is kind of an issue for me because like Ron was saying, I kind of bought the place originally to move to Meaford and move away from all the traffic and whatnot. And I was just disappointed to hear when this was happening. And yeah, so I just wanted to put in my 2 cents that I'm against this as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nicole, are you also online? Yeah, you're still muted. Okay. Sorry, if you'd like to speak now, please go ahead.
Hi, it's Nicole. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Please go ahead.
Hi. So I'll be quick because I know we've kind of touched base on everything. My name is Nicole Mogilnicki. Um, so like everyone said, parking is not the greatest. So I just wanted to mention just from the meeting, the 24 lots that will be affected, they mentioned that the developer may ask for more changes. So this might not be the only ask. So even if they sell all 24 lots, they might still continue rise up the questions on like other lots that they haven't built yet. Because like they said, they want to sell off all the lots first, and then um, they're gonna build more. So once they do build more, are they gonna ask for more of the zoning? So that's something that we should also consider down the line. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, which is why we asked the question, have they proceeded with asking for any changes? And so, sorry for holding you up. If you please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not going to reiterate everything
Can you
that
state your name first?
Oh, sure. My name's Reid Barrett. I'm not a resident of the subdivision, but I'm a long-time resident of Meaford. The purpose of me speaking today is not the personal interest, but the long-term, I want to avoid sort of long-term issues for Meaford. Something that we have to pick up the pieces because of a provincial legislation or something that's happened, and we're going to pay the price of long-term. If we can prevent that, I think that'd be great. And I think we've heard a lot of good things, and I'm not going to reiterate a lot of it. But additional dwelling units or ADUs really work well in high-density areas like Metro Toronto. And so I'm certain that when the province contemplated additional dwelling units, they didn't think of the snow that Southern Georgian Bay gets. And I think Meaford, if they ever had a chance to push back, this would be the time. When you think about a community here that doesn't have public transit, you think about the school buses that have to get in there, the garbage pickup, and the size of lot. This could be a real challenge and might be a real mayhem for several weeks in the winter. Not only that, but it's got one exit onto 26. So I think that, the additional cars is definitely a problem. The other thing is that it is the gateway to our community. So as you drive past this subdivision, you don't want it to look like a commuter lot or a park and fly. This is, this should be the serene community of Meaford that's on the bay. And so I just want to say, I think if we could limit some of the issues before it happens, it would be a really good thing for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. As I stated previously, these decisions relative to ADUs were not made by this committee. And I would encourage you to contact your local councillor and or members of the municipality of Meaford and address your concerns, let them know, because obviously with the growth, there's going to be other developers that are going to be looking to do relatively the same thing. As it relates to the one entrance, I know that the MTO wants to limit the number of entrances onto the highway. There is actually two, but one is designated for emergency purposes only. But I would think that going forward in future, as the number of units builds in there, that there will be more need for a secondary exit as well. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Certainly, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Rick Crouch. I do not live in Meaford, but my son is one of the residents on Equality Drive, and he is one of the advocates that has written a letter. So I'm not going to address some of the things he's covered over. In the interest of full disclosure, I am a real estate broker. I'm with Sotheby's International Realty, and one of my colleagues, Matthew Lidbetter, is the agent for Loon Call Development. I have no involvement with Loon Call. I have no involvement with any financial gain from this subdivision, nor from my son and his wife's purchase. But just to address, some of the issues outside some of the norms. Somebody on the committee mentioned, that this seemed like it was not a minor variance. To start with, this is not a minor circumstance. All of the homeowners in there typically bought their properties through Loon Call Development, who owned all the properties across the road. The game plan has changed. The Loon Call elected to sell those properties to Norterra. Norterra, has started to build in the area. I commend them for that. But now the plan is let's change the plan again, going from single family residential semi-detached homes to multi-units. And again, that was not what these people bought their homes under the pretense of. So, there's no point in belaboring what they've already addressed in terms of parking and garbage and noise and that sort of thing. But I think as Mr. Barrett said, it really speaks, I think, to a couple of things. One, the basic complexion of Meaford, the town itself. I've read a lot of the correspondence that was supplied to me by my son, both from the planning department as well as through Travis and Associates. Nowhere did anything mention affordable housing. All of the information I saw was addressing investor buyers. Those are not who these people thought were going to be their neighbors across the road. From the standpoint of the real estate market, it has changed dramatically in the last 2 years. And I've been in the business here for almost 25 years. And I cover from Meaford right through Town of Blue Mountains, Collingwood, Clearview Township, over to Wasaga Beach. Right now, we have the highest level of MLS listings on our MLS system that we've had since 2015, 2016. So my question is, there's been no mention of these addressing the issue of affordable housing. There has been a real shift in the market, and this seems to be more of a request that's being put forward, I think, to address, the fact that demand is down. In fact, it's reaching out now to different buyers, investor buyers. And I think they're few and far between. I was out last weekend showing clients duplex, single detached, and semi-detached houses in Collingwood last weekend. They're very unkempt. They're rented out. The tenants don't cut the grass. The garbage cans are out in full view of the street. And when I read the various reports, how none of this was going to change the complexion of the street, I can argue quite differently. And I think that's something the committee really has to think long and hard about, regardless of whether it's addressing what the provincial legislation is. You've really got to think about the existing homeowners and what you want the municipality to look like. And is this going to drive and address the affordable housing issue in Meaford? To me, the answer is no, it's not.
I did consider exactly your point that is this going to be a multi-generational family that moves into this and, they have their in-law suite and so forth, as opposed to how many people will buy it with the intention of rental of all or some of the unit. So I understand your concerns. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? No. Any member of the committee have any additional comments, questions? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, through the gentleman in the hat that made the final presentation, and I'm sorry, I forgot to write your name down. I got everybody else. Your last 3 points on your presentation, I wonder if you would go to the mic and repeat those. And then I'd like staff to respond to those, the last 3 comments that you made.
Regarding section 45 of the Planning Act.
It's right at the end of this presentation. That one of the comments was that it didn't adhere to the official plan.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, probably talking, I guess I was talking about section 45 of the Planning Act, talking about how in order to, for the parking variance, it must meet the following criteria, be truly minor, And in this case, everyone's in agreement that it's not maintain the intent of zoning bylaw, and it doesn't. That's why the variance is being requested. Conform to with the official plan, which it does not. The plan was for single-family community, and be appropriate for the land, and it isn't. It changes the nature of the street and the community. Was that it? I talked about fitting a square peg in a round hole. A few times I do that. I have to apologize because I had a statement and I know that a lot of the points were covered. I didn't want to repeat them again. So I kind of jumped in the middle, but I talked about Bill 23 and that Bill 23, I know that people I've talked to have said that it's almost like it's being pushed upon communities, Bill 23, to follow suit. But really, it doesn't give the developers a free pass, and it doesn't shift the balance of power to the developers. That it's still within the municipalities, and they have the authority and the duty to decide what and how intensification will fit. And they're not required to make something fit that clearly doesn't, and that you don't have to allow, I said it again, a square peg in a round hole. And yeah, and it must follow the respect for local planning principles, protect green space and environment, avoid overburdening infrastructure, and reflect the safety and character of the community.
Yeah, I'm not trying to cut you off. It was right at the end of your presentation, and I thought you'd made a comment in there that it didn't follow the official, the town's official plan.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
if you were jumping around, it may not.
I know.
It may not have been at the end. So
yeah,
okay.
Sorry, but that's I had a really nice story at the end. I was going to tell, but
Michael, because your initial presentation addressed some of that relative to the official plan and so forth, perhaps you could reiterate it.
Yeah, so it's staff's interpretation is that this variance is in line with the intent and purposes of the official plan. The official plan designation for this area is urban residential area. It's meant to be a place that is the most densified area of the municipality. And it's also meant to be a place where where residential uses are allowed. So a driveway for a residential use is considered in line with the intent and purpose of the official plan. I can go through the rest of the 4 tests if you. Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Denise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only ended up writing down one question to answer at the end, which I'd suggested we answer at the end, and it was about whether there was walking, biking permitted on Highway 26, but I was hoping to answer any questions at the end when we wrap up so that we're not in a back and forth situation. If you can think of any other outstanding questions, we're happy to answer those. And then we also had a proposed additional condition that we were going to suggest that might help facilitate some of the resolution of issues. But so the question was about whether there's biking or hiking permitted on, or biking or walking on Highway 26. Obviously, I don't suggest people should walk on Highway 26 without a sidewalk. And we would identify that definitely sidewalks are the preferred method of people to walk, but biking is permitted on Highway 26. It's not a 400 series highway. But I think the point is well taken that we know that we need to provide for pedestrian access. However, I think I just want to reiterate that the question about whether we're permitting 3 units here is the main topic of the concerns I've heard with whether this is a good idea. It's too dense. There's, concerns about safety of people walking because there's so many units. But we have to remember that's not the question before the committee. It is about whether or not the parking can be in the front yard. Because of that, we had a condition that we thought might help satisfy some of that, if you'd like us to propose that.
I think because the committee has seen the suggested decision, we will take a vote on that first and then look at potential, if that does not pass, we will look at potential addendums to that motion at the time. So Haley, can you please read the suggested decision and conditions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the recommended decision is that the Committee of Adjustment to approve minor variance A07-2025 for the lands at lots 1 to 18, 23 to 26, and 94 to 97, Plan 60M-89, providing relief from the parking requirements of Section 5.5B of zoning bylaw 60/2009 to permit a building with 3 or more dwelling units to allow parking in the front yard. As Denise mentioned, conditions are to be determined by staff.
May I have a motion on the decision as read? I need a mover and a seconder before we can vote on it.
Okay, I'll move it.
Seconded. We can't vote on it until I get a seconder.
Well, I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? I would like to add a further condition, because one of the concerns that I have is that there would be an attempt by some of the owners in these new units to even widen the driveway further and basically take away any green space that's left. And technically, you could squeeze in another single car driveway. So I would like to propose that there must be a minimum, because I looked at basically the numbers, the driveways would take approximately 60% of the frontage. I would like to see a minimum standard of 35% of green space on the lot. Is there any discussion on that amendment? We can vote on the original one first and then just.
I think that would be wise.
Okay, so all in favor of the original motion as read? All opposed? That motion is defeated. Given the addendum, would anyone like to discuss that further?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Are you talking 35% of the entire lot?
35% of the front yard.
Of the front yard.
The width. Yeah, front yard. Yeah. Any additional comments? Anything from the planning staff is, because I know that's one of the considerations that you're going through.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the one thing we did discuss this potential with the applicant as well, and they were amenable to a minimum requirement, but when we were measuring it, it looks like to meet 2 parking space widths, which would be, it would end up being slightly less than the 6-meter driveway. So I know that we heard already that a typical double driveway is 6 meters. So in order to meet the very minimum of a parking space, which is 2.7 meters wide, it would be a 5.4 meter wide driveway, at least at the property line. So what I'm wondering is, it would be probably to get a double driveway plus the green space that you're talking about, it would be probably closer to 32%, something like that. It would be 8-meter wide lot with 5.4 meters for the driveway, and then the remainder, the 2.6 meters for a green space. And then if that is added with the adjacent lot, that'll be quite a bit more. So it will be consolidated, and that would make a difference for the semis, for a single, if they chose to go with the single, which they haven't shown us in these drawings today, but if they were doing that, it would look a little bit different.
So you're proposing that it would be 38%.
32.
32.
I think we'd actually spoken to the developer about 30 and 70, so 70% driveway, 30%, which they've said they would be okay with. It's certainly a cleaner approach, which is more than the minimum now. We don't have a minimum size open space in our zoning bylaw. But it would prevent the situation that you're speaking about, Mr. Chair, which is where they realize they need even more space and then they decide to pave more. This would give some open space requirement at minimum.
Yes, because
Yes, sir. So yes, Mr. Chair, through you, it would be 30% would be landscaped open space and 70% driveway.
and that would prevent them from essentially paving over the entire front yard and or moving and parking their vehicles on there, which in the wintertime is a real concern, obviously, because there's no overnight parking. Any additional comments from committee? May I have a mover and a seconder on that motion that there be a minimum of 30% green space?
30, we're talking 30.
30.
Well, to vote, we have to have a motion, so I'll vote.
And a seconder. Okay, all in favor? That motion is also defeated. Is there any changes to this variance request that would meet the acceptability of the committee members?
Not for me.
Then may I have a motion to refuse the variance as requested? May I have a mover and a seconder, Peter and David? All in favor of the motion to refuse this variance? That motion is carried. So as of now, that is not approved. Understandably, there is a right to appeal going forward. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, that's a refusal. Yeah. I told the parent in advance. Yeah. Yeah. Is there any additional new business? Then may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Peter and David, this meeting is officially.
We got a date for the next one?
It's sometime in September 24th.
September 24th.
Thank you.
And there's one file.
All right. Thank you, everyone.